over 2,000 years ago, and we're still following the story, trying to understand what happened. He always cared more about others than himself, and he gave and gave and gave. Jesus.
He was way too trusting, and he would never meet a stranger.
3 fateful days leading up to what some would call the greatest betrayal. What really happened?
He saved my life. I will be forever grateful for that.
Hear it from those who were there, who walked the grounds with him.
But some of his so-called friends were not as loyal as everybody thought.
I would have done anything to protect them.
Find out what happened to Jesus the day he died.
When I was a teenager, an angel came to me and said that I would give birth to a child, and his name would be Jesus. And he was the Son of God. He was truly the Son of God. When I first laid eyes on Jesus, he was not like any child or newborn you have ever seen. He was alert. His eyes were wide open. It was like when he saw you, he knew you. It was like even as a baby, he could see straight into your soul.
Jesus, also referred to as Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Christ, was a first-century Jewish preacher and religious leader. He is the central figure of Christianity. Most Christians believe he is the incarnation of God the Son and the awaited Messiah, prophesied in the Old Testament.
From the time I came in this world, I knew that I was the Son of God. People tried to tell me otherwise. I knew that I would be the Savior, to save those who couldn't save themselves, to help those who couldn't help themselves.
As a young man, Jesus knew he was different, and that difference would make even the elect of God call out for his blood.
He was very humble. He had a heart of gold. He just had a love for people that I could not imagine that anyone would actually deal with as much as he dealt with. But he was very humble, and that was a great characteristic of him.
Oh, he was wise. He was smart beyond words. He valued us and he changed our lives. He showed us how to love. We weren't used to the attention that he gave us.
He was an humble brother, a leader by nature. I liked his aura. I liked how he held eye contact with me when I spoke. That's how I knew he was real. Very genuine, and he had sort of a magnetism about him that just drew people in,
I knew when the angel first came to me that my boy, my baby, was not mine. He belonged to God, and his purpose was greater than me. It was greater than his father. It was greater than the small town that we came from.
When Jesus became of age, he left home and began his earthly ministry.
Miracles after miracles, I was just like, I had to be a part of that.
I mean, he performed miracles, and I had to know more.
The way he spoke, it was poetry. I mean, the way the brother moved was like poetry in motion, He spoke in parables, and I was studying him as he spoke. I would just look at the way his face was, his aesthetic, and I said, however whatever it takes to be like this man, I'm going to do it.
I loved my disciples. They all were totally different, and I had to treat them according to who they were.
You know, it was just the way he carried himself. He was a man worth following. And I'll never forget one time we was sitting at the pier and we was trying to fish. We couldn't catch no fish or nothing. And he came and he just said a few words. He just, cast your nets and I'll make you fish as a man. We brought in the biggest catch we ever had.
He was the same man behind closed doors as he was in public.
He didn't change. He didn't change for nobody. You know what you see in person is what you get behind closed doors, and that's the one thing that again amazed me, because he was so humble. He was calm. I didn't understand how he did it, but you know, that's just the type of person he was.
He was precious, he was sweet, and he was as obedient as one of his kind could be. Oh, one time we were traveling with the caravan, going to give sacrifice, and we noticed Jesus was not with us. He had chosen to stay in the town that we had left, in the synagogue. When we finally found him, Joseph and I, we went straight to chastise him. And he told me, he looked me straight into my soul as if he was confused as to why I would chastise him. And he says, "Then you know I was about my Father's business."
As he walked through his earthly ministry, it would lead him closer to betrayal and deceit that would ultimately lead to his death.
I loved my disciples, but I only trusted God.
Well, Peter was an average hothead. I mean, Jesus had to tell him all the time to settle down.
Some of the stuff that I've seen him deal with, sometimes it just gets me mad. But I was like, sometimes I just want to chop off somebody here. You know what I'm saying?
I would have to say my brother Peter loved him. I mean, you could just hear the love pouring out of him when he spoke about Jesus. Made me a little jealous, because I always looked at myself as Jesus' most prestige pupil.
Judas, there was just always something about him. He just never was on a straight up and up. He was a little shady.
I have to say the person who hated him the most out of the crew was me. You know, I had a balance between a love and a hatred for Jesus. Why? Because he was in a position of power. He was in a position where he could draw people in, almost manipulate people, if he had that in his heart. So from that enviousness that I had of him, it bred hatred. But I loved him because of that.
Jesus was working many miracles. He was teaching things that were defying standard traditions and causing a lot of animosity amongst the religious leaders of that day.
When he began his journey, his ministry, he wasn't as present in my life anymore. And I understood, and I didn't want to stop him from being who he was. I was afraid for him.
I felt like there were a lot of people that did not like Jesus. He had many enemies. I mean, he ruffled a lot of feathers. I mean, the miracles he performed, especially the Pharisees and the church leaders, they were really gunning for him. They were not used to doing things Jesus' way.
The things he was doing and the things he was saying, it was stirring up so much animosity towards him.
He definitely held his ground, inside and out. I believe Jesus was, for me, definitely an introvert and an extrovert. You know, he knew how to turn it on and turn it off, but his energy was still the same. He did not come off as a two-face. You know, he spoke his truth and he lived it.
Everyone wasn't ready for the truth he was giving.
Someone wanted Jesus dead, as Jesus felt the impending doom of his death looming. He told his trusted disciple Peter,
"Man, that was... I had other plans, man. That was my boy. I told him we can do this. We got this. We had plans to do big things and just take over. But to hear something like, it broke my heart."
The days before his death, he was going into Jerusalem, and I tried to get to him, but there were so many people, me and his brothers, we came to see him, and there were so many people around him. I couldn't even get through the crowd. I sent word that we were there. I just wanted to tell him to be careful. I wanted to tell him to make sure. I wanted to tell him to make sure. This is what he really wanted. This is what he was really supposed to do.
I always knew that my purpose would cause some sort of confrontation, but I didn't necessarily know that I would die until later on in life.
A few days before his death, he made his way to Jerusalem with his disciples to celebrate the Passover. Jesus' presence there added fuel to an already blazing fire. The city was in an uproar, and Jesus' death was now inevitable.
It was chaos. People were screaming. People were just running around. People were fighting, you know, and it was just conflict all over. Completely unbelievable. And I couldn't believe it myself.
Well, naturally, I was afraid. We all were. We were confused. We weren't sure. We seen him perform miracles, but we was not sure.
It was just beyond what I could ever imagine.
I mean, Jesus was the same as if nothing was going on. I mean, he walked with confidence and with the love that he did with us all previous as we walked with him through our missions.
As Jesus and his disciples sat down for the Passover feast, there was an eeriness in the air. Jesus already knew who would betray him.
Once it was apparent to me that Judas would be the one to betray me, initially I was hurt. My innate humanness was sad, and I guess you could say even somewhat angry. But I understood the purpose, and I understood the calling, and I understood the prophecy that needed to be fulfilled. And Judas fulfilled his assignment.
I didn't know offhand, but I had a feeling. When we sat at that table, I had a feeling that I just knew something wasn't right.
When I betrayed Jesus, was I aware that it was going to lead to his death? Absolutely not. But it was a very conscious decision that I made when I decided to betray him. It was premeditated, and I was unapologetic, and I was going to remain unapologetic about it.
Jesus made his way to the Garden of Gethsemane. There, he would have time with God as he consulted him concerning his fate.
In the garden, I cried out to God, and it was one of the most intense, deep, revelational moments of my life. I was astonished. Parts of me didn't understand how, why it had to happen the way the download was coming at those moments in the garden. I continued to go past how I felt naturally concerning my purpose. I continued to look upward and to look Godward, and he gave me strength that surpassed even my understanding of why it had to happen this way.
There's something about Jesus that sparked so many questions in my head. Oh, one of his favorite quotes was, "Oh, before Abraham was, I am." I'm like, please get out of here. You are a divine spirit wrapped in a human body. You said that whoever believes in God is your brother and your mother. Well, that makes me a divine spirit too. So I'm gonna have to challenge you, Jesus. I'm gonna have to challenge you. I'm sorry.
I loved Judas, and even after he betrayed me, I died for him.
Judas arrived at Gethsemane with Roman soldiers. As he betrayed Jesus with a kiss, the soldiers took him to trial before Pontius Pilate. The religious leaders of that day had blackmailed Pontius so that he would convict Jesus and sentence him to death by crucifixion.
I got scared. I got scared. I saw what it's like. And I saw what he was facing. I wasn't ready to be that sacrifice.
The next time I saw my sonny, he was in chains. I couldn't even recognize him. They had beat him so bad. He was bleeding, he was swollen. I could not.
It was hard looking at my Lord so broken, so beaten. It shattered us all.
With fear of deportation for Pontius Pilate, he sentenced Jesus to death.
Many people wondered why I didn't fight. Well, I wanted to fulfill my purpose. Fighting wasn't a part of it. Long suffering was. I was focused. I was determined. I was going to walk to Calvary and give my life just like I said I would. As I walked the Via Dolorosa, my divinity and humanity collaborated. They wanted to crucify me because I upset the politics and religious order of that day. Everyone wanted eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and I came that we all may have life, and life more abundantly. I cried. The tears were me getting the fight out. The tears kept me from responding to the spit. The tears held my power back so that I could stay the course.
Eli! Eli! Lama sabak tani. It is finished.
Taking his last breath, Jesus died on Calvary. They buried Jesus in a tomb. They slid a large stone over the tomb and commissioned Roman soldiers to guard because of the whispers that Jesus may rise again. Jesus lay in the tomb. It seemed it was over until
Who are you? What brings you here? Most all who come to a place like this, damnation, they have some sort of sin to their name. But you, I don't see that. I see a foreign energy, a holy energy, a hated energy in a place like this. I only know one who has the power to come here at free will. Jesus. Jesus. Jesus.